welcome to sunny Michigan. You have to go with the flow. And so, I was talking yesterday about not putting strings on this bow. This is the one I was working on the tips. I've got the pin knocks already on because I don't want to I don't want to mess up the adhesion of the rawhide to the wood by putting any waxy surfaces or waxy stuff on the tips. However, because it turns out I'm not going to get my rawhide strips for these bows until the middle of next week, and I certainly want to finish up the series of 3 bows for friends before Christmas, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this bow as a self bow. I'm not going to have any backing on it. So at this point, all I'm doing with my 80 grit is refining it and getting it down to where I want it. It's not final tillered, so I'm not going to go over the belly, this is the belly, with anything finer than 80 grit. That'll go, I'll do the final sanding on the belly side, the side that's towards us, the side that I will use to adjust the stiffness of each limb and where the stiffness is. I'm going to do that when it's under string. The back, however, I am going to finish sand. So I just use my stiff wooden block with the 80 grit all over it. Now I'm going to do the supple, the spongy one on the back. I am going to prepare this for the next grade of sandpaper. I forget what it is, but it's finer than 80. I don't want to go nuts with sanding because every time you run sandpaper over it, you're reducing it in draw weight a little bit. So I'm going to be very, very selective in how many times I run over this in order to get it to the smoothness I'm looking for. The illumination is no greater out here than it was last night in the pole barn, but the reason I'm able to work more effectively out here is because of the shadowing effect. It's not a matter of illumination, that raw illumination that allows you to see, you know, the smoothness where you need to remove wood. It's shadowing. And so this is not very bright out here. It's certainly not very warm, but it's perfect for seeing shadows. Be right back. I'm going to get finer grit of sandpaper. Okay, next up from 80, I jump right to 220. You could go at 150, but 220 is the next step to get rid of any marks from the 80. And unfortunately, I forget to bring out the 400 and 600 that's in the house. Before your eyes, you shall see how I prepare my sandpaper. Very technical. I take it and just kind of, you know, fold it in half here. Find my line. Sometimes the paper itself is a little rubbery and you can't see. First thing, rip that in half, stick that in there so it doesn't fall out. Get my halfway. Had a mystery. There was a mysterious thing that happened last night. Now we've been having gentle snowfall, and when you have gentle snowfall and nothing walking across that snowfall or skidding across it, you don't have marks. You just have clean snow. And so last evening, before I went into the house, after having so much fun outside, I filled the bird feeders in backyard out here. And then I've got a little pile of hay, you know, feed the creatures, and raked it all up. And next to that hay was a chair and a mailbox. The chair and the mailbox were there for the person that's going to deliver the round bale of hay. He just comes in the gates, drops the hay, goes to the mailbox, grabs his money, and then takes off. Well, this morning, and last night was not windy. It was not a windy night. I go out there to see what's going on. It's like Oh man, because the chair had been moved 50 feet, at least 50 feet, and was laying on its side. The mailbox was next to the chair. There were no tracks around. It wasn't, I don't know what moved that. You'll say, well, the wind could have done it. But the wind didn't move anything else. Plus, there were no skid marks. There was an absence, a total absence of skid marks. The chair in the mailbox went from here next to that bale, that pile of hay, which the hay wasn't blown around, and just picked up and dumped 50 feet away in this fresh field of snow. I have no idea what happened. That's the mystery. You always want to sand. This is a little quieter than the 80s, so I can talk and work. You always want to sand with the grain when you're starting to do finishing work. When I was doing the rougher work, I was doing it at an angle because it removes wood faster, and it's just a good way to round things. But definitely finishing sanding, running it right beyond the tip. You always want to sand with it. And you're not going to see me sanding a belly with the 220 because I'm going to save that until after I get the string made up and see how things are. Again, not necessary to rawhide back these things. They're good bows. They don't need rawhide backing. I just do rawhide backing because it gives me a good painting platform. And yes, it does make them a little more bulletproof, but the grain on this bow is perfectly fine for a south bow. And my PBs were, in fact, designed to be south bow, so I'm not really giving up anything. I'm just going to have a bow before I planned on it. And I like the mojo, too, is that I've got a series of bows, boom, back into bow making. And the first one I finish will be an original John paddle bow, unbacked. It'll have the dyed tips in the 3 spots. My crest, my bow, I think that's good mojo. Should be wearing a paper mask, but I can't talk that well in a paper mask that would allow you to hear me. Take it off here. The weather report, it's 28, but it feels like 18. It's very humid. Okay, so I've got this. Get those tips done. And then from here, it's time to make a string. Final tiller it. It's kind of knocking the rough points off this. Make the string, final tiller, and then crest it. Put the dark oil on it, my favorite dark oil. Followed by a grease and beeswax. To actually do that, it'll be nice because it'll be in the kitchen. It's warm in the kitchen. Not so much out here. But as Stickbo said, it's nice to forge a bow in the cold. Now the Blue Jays are upset. Maybe they're the ones that lifted, like a Disney movie, my chair in my mailbox. I should check them, see if they have money on them. Mysterious things are afoot, my friends. The tips don't have much to do with final tillering, so I might as well sand them up. 220 grit. Do I go beyond 220 grit? Yep, I'll go to 400. At least 400. Now to make them really smooth, I've seen people, I rarely do it, I think I've done it a couple times. Take a damp sponge, run it over the wood, it lifts the grain, and then sand that, and that allows you to get even smoother. But there is a point in which, you know, polishing wood and smotherizing it, you know, it's kind of diminishing returns. And so there we are. The back 220 is actually enough to finish it, but I'll do 400. I'd say that's pretty darn good. I'll put this up, find my gloves. It's back in the pole barn. Make a string. In the next video you'll see there will be more progress made on this one. Have a good one. Hope you're staying warm or else not minding being cold. That's it. That's a wrap.